Good morning, class. Excuse me, good morning, Captain. Good morning, class. My name is Cadet Boldt, and today's presentation is on attitude and how it impacts the first cadet wing. Next slide, please. This morning I want to talk about the impact of attitude, the formation of attitude, and the future, your future, with the right attitude. Next slide, please. So, everyone in this room woke up this morning sometime, maybe it was last night, this morning, and you made an initial subconscious decision about what your attitude was going to be today. Some of you may be, optimistic. Some of you may be pessimistic. You may have laid there in bed for a while, hit the snooze, slowly got up, sat in front of your cereal bowl for a while, contemplating all the horrible things that were going to happen to you at ROTC today, like with the spree king, for example. Or some of you may have been like that Blahu this morning, who jumped out of bed, hit that alarm clock, did 50 push-ups real quick, and yelled out a war cry, "Woo!" because he has positive attitude. The thing about attitude is they're contagious, and are yours worth catching? And attitude compounds when it's exposed to others also. For example, we've all been in a group, remember last year when we were all in FTP, and sooner or later, one of us would start getting a negative attitude about something. We didn't understand something, or something happened, and one of us would start getting negative. Pretty soon, all of us started getting negative. What's the most contagious? What's more contagious than a positive attitude? It's a negative attitude. They're catching. They compound on each other. So you can either be negative Nancy or perky Pete. Next slide, please. Attitudes are subjective. That's why they're so hard to initially identify sometimes. So I put the most common 4 rotten attitudes that we need to identify right off the bat. For example, the first one, an inability to admit wrongdoing. For example, say you're a group commander and you have a squadron commander, for example, that was in charge of an event and the event totally failed, but that squadron commander doesn't want to own up to the fact that maybe it was their leadership that let the event fail, for example. The next one, failing to forgive. Perfect example in this case. The other day we played this ridiculous game of dodgeball, and even though myself, being extremely physically fit and very agile, smacked right in the face with a dodgeball, instantly anger just eroded from my body. Fortunately, Cadet Mika was there to make jokes about it. He did the right thing. He identified my negative attitude and started making jokes about how Cadet Hood had wings falling at me, and I just couldn't get out of the way. So, failing to forgive. I did not want to forgive Cadet Stites because that was the guy who hit me in the face. Next one, petty jealousy. Another great example. Many of you have pilot slots, navigator slots, and then there's me, who's very jealous of you because I cannot be a pilot or a navigator because I don't make the qualifications. Next one, desire, or the last one, the desire to hog all the credit. We've all seen this in this detachment, maybe in school somewhere where you see that cadet or that student who, "Look at me, teacher, I want all the credit." That, believe it or not, is a bad attitude. Next slide, please. So how does attitude impact an individual? It impacts it in several ways. First, attitude is an inward feeling expressed by behavior. That's why attitude can be seen without a word being said. For example, positive attitude, negative attitude. Pretty easy. I didn't even have to say a word. Our attitude is the primary force that determines whether we succeed or fail in life. This is huge. Every day when you wake up, you have to put on that smile, you have to have that positive attitude. And when we see people in our cadet wing that have a bad attitude, first thing that you have to do is identify that bad attitude. You can't let it go unnoticed. Sometimes you have to come up to that person and say, "Hey, I see that you have a bad attitude, let's work on it." However it takes, but sometimes you need to identify that bad attitude first. And pretty soon, you'll succeed if you get that positive attitude. Next slide, please. Perfect example right here. You all know the story of David and Goliath. The whole army said, "Holy cow, Goliath is so big, we can never defeat him." Yet David said, "Holy cow, Goliath is so big, I cannot miss." That is a positive attitude right there. Next slide, please. what shapes a person's attitude? There's four main things that shapes a person's attitude. First, your personality. Who are you? Are you more optimistic or are you pessimistic? I like to think of myself as more of an optimistic person. I try and look at the positive things. Is my glass half empty or half full? Mine is always half full. The next one, your environment. What's around you? Do you surround yourself by negative people or do you surround yourself by positive people? Hopefully in our environment, in ROTC, most of us are mainly positive, so that should help. Next one, self-image. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as handsome and attractive like myself, physically fit? Or do you see yourself as just another nobody? That's very important. And then finally, new experiences and growth. Every one of us makes mistakes in here unless you're a Cadet Blasco. And it's how you grow from those experiences. If you take those bad experiences like me getting smacked in the face with a dodgeball and say, you know what, I learned a lesson because Cadet Amico helped me out. So I'm growing from those experiences. That's what makes you positive or negative. Next slide. So can an attitude be changed? Absolutely. This little kitty, I used to have a big poster of this kitty, and it would remind me every morning, you know, to wake up, take a shower, feel good about yourself. So, two keys. Number one, evaluate your present attitude. Do I have a bad attitude or do I have a good attitude? And using those four main negative attitude points, that's where you can kind of define where your attitude's at. Second, you must have the desire to change. You can have a bad attitude or a good attitude, but if your attitude's bad and you have no desire to change it, then there's no point in having this conversation anymore. The one thing that may come actually before this is before you can evaluate your own attitude, sometimes you have to have somebody evaluate it for you. Like in the previous example, when Cadet Nico evaluated my attitude for being hit in the face with that dodgeball. And that's when he said, Cadet Boldt, you're having a bad attitude. And then I had to say, you know what, you're right. Evaluated it, and then I had to change my attitude, even though it was very hard. Next slide, please. Now look at all these people. Attitude determines your success in life. For example, Bill Gates, moneymaker. Michael Jordan, physically fit. Arnold Schwarzenegger, physically fit. And now Governor of California. Albert Einstein, genius. Donald Trump, business success. Walt Disney, need I say more? And myself. Look at me. You know, I have a positive attitude. I'm so successful. But more importantly than me, it's about you. What is your attitude? And all of you are successful in life so far because you're in this program. We need to continue that. Excellence is not a skill, it's an attitude. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, I've talked about the impact of attitude, the formation of attitude, and the future with the right attitude. This concludes my briefing. Are there any questions?